What's up, party people? We are back, and I just got back from a trip about 3 hours south of where I live, and I stopped at a bookstore while I was there, of course. So I got a few more stacks on the floor here, and we'll go through some of the ones I bought today. We've also got another short story by O'Connor, of course, The Displaced Person, which I'll talk about at the end. Yeah, so the first book I bought at this bookstore was one that you guys recommended to me. So I do try to read all the comments you guys put. It's been a bit harder the last couple weeks just because you guys have been so active and engaging, so that's great. Now, one of you guys recommended to me Vogt, not sure how to say it, probably should have looked that up. I'm just going to call him VV because I don't know how to say his name. Anyways, this guy, apparently super influential, one of the grandmasters of sci-fi. He wrote during the golden era, like 30s, 40s, 50s, kind of that time period. He was born in 1912, so 16 years before Philip Dick, my favorite sci-fi author, and he actually influenced Philip Dick, so that's a pretty big accomplishment there. So yeah, this is a collection of his short stories, which I am looking forward to reading probably soon. Now, if you are interested in an author but don't want to dive into one of their larger works, short stories are a great place to start, so that's why I bought this one, because there was a few other VV at the store, Van Vogt. Next up, we have another sci-fi book, and that is Ray Bradbury's The Martian Chronicles. Now, Ray Bradbury is famous for his Fahrenheit 451, which is a dystopian futuristic book about a place where they burn books. I don't know too much about it. I know it's good. I have a copy. Haven't read it. Crucify me. But yeah, looking forward to reading this as well. Now, this one, I don't know what it, like, okay. All old books smell good. That's fine. But for some reason, this one in particular is very pungent. And I don't know what it is, if it's the glue or certain conditions that create a certain smell on the pages. But when I sniffed this book, when I got a hit of this, it took me right back to when I was like 11 years old and my parents got me a copy of The Hobbit. It smelled the exact same. And I don't know what it is about this, but if you could smell this through the camera, you would be floored. This is the good stuff right here. So yeah, I'm not sure why this volume in particular, but I'm not complaining. So yeah, this is also a short story compilation, Martian Chronicles. I think they're a bit shorter than Van Vogt, but they have, yeah, just a lot of stuff in here, so that's good. Next up, we have a Russian guy from 1860. Now, this guy was a doctor, and he said that while medicine was his lawfully wedded wife, literature was his mistress. And he kind of just started writing for money, and eventually influenced the short story. So, influential guy. And if you don't know who I'm talking about, that is Anton Chekhov. So I have two of his short story compilations. I've got The Party and Other Stories, and I've also got Lady with Lapdog and Other Short Stories. So great. All of these books were like $5-6 each, so that was, yeah, great finds. Can't really complain. Good condition. Yeah. Next up, we've got Christopher Marlowe's The Jew of Malta. Now, the only other book I have or have read by Marlo is Dr. Faustus, which I liked. And this guy, of course, is a contemporary of Shakespeare that may have influenced Shakespeare a little bit. And they kind of fought back and forth to see who would be like the premier playwright of the Elizabethan era. Marlo, of course, was bested by Shakespeare. But yeah, famous guy, very influential. So glad to pick up anything I find from Marlo. I will say that this edition, I don't like it. Like, there's no image on the front, and it's like, it makes me think of like Cliff Notes, like Spark Notes. Like, come on, who designed this cover? It's bad, and it's stiff too. But anyways, can't complain. So yeah, Jew of Malta. What is it about? Not too sure. A Jew on the island of Malta. No, I did read a summary of it, and apparently there's a guy whose fortune gets stolen by the government, and so he kind of goes on this like sneaky revenge plot to get his fortune back. So that's cool. Next up, we have got my boy, John Donne. Now, Marlo, if you look at a portrait of him, he looks like a playboy. Now, on the other hand, we have somebody who looks quite emo, actually. Maybe one of the OG emo people. And look at that. Dressed in all black, absolutely smoldering. Psh. Yeah, anyways. Not sure where I was going with that. But yeah, John Donne. I had a like Dover Thrift Editions, like thin selection of his stuff, but that is not going to cut it. We need the complete works. So if I find that, I'm going to replace it. So yeah, This guy's famous for writing his what's called metaphysical poetry. Don't know too much about it, other than he kind of was pushing the limits, pushing the boundaries on his portrayals of like themes of love and sex, which I don't think influenced everything he wrote, but definitely some of it. So yeah, and he also wrote sermons, so interesting mix. Yeah. Next to last, we have the Dictionary of Classical Mythology. This one I got at Find for like $1, so why not? I do buy reference books every once in a while, if they're cheap and useful. So if you're reading through the Odyssey or the Iliad or any neoclassical work that has, like Keats, that has mythical stuff in it, and you want to know what Paeon or Palatine is, you can know that Palatine is the largest of the 7 hills in Rome. Or if you're interested in Hermione, you know that it's the wife of Cadmus. So look at that, it's so useful. Yeah, anyways. Next, we have the Song of Roland. And this is what I've been looking for a while, but haven't found a good deal on it until now, so I got the Penguin Classics edition. Hard to go wrong with that. Decent flop on that one, and decent condition, so I'm happy with that, $5. Song of Roland is written, we're not sure when it was written. Somewhere between 1778 and our earliest manuscript is from the 11th century, or 12th century. So somewhere in there. It covers the events of 1778, which is a battle under the reign of Charlemagne. Now, what exactly happens? Well, there's a guy named Roland. To my best understanding, he's kind of defending the army during this battle. He gets betrayed and killed, and then Charlemagne kind of like goes on a revenge tear to avenge him. Revenge? Anyways. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. It's one of the old French epics. Apparently, it's the oldest surviving major French work we have. So that's interesting. But yeah, very classic. One thing I didn't mention at the beginning of the video is that I did actually start and finish something yesterday, and that is Shakespeare's King Lear. Now, I don't feel educated enough to speak on Shakespeare, really. One must approach Shakespeare with care and reverence. I just don't really have that. I can have reverence. I just don't, and I can be careful, but I just don't feel like I'm not educated enough to speak profoundly about Shakespeare. And I don't really want to give a plot summary either, because it's kind of complex. There's a lot of interweavings and yeah, there's a lot goes on in here. It was good. Probably not my favorite Shakespeare play I've read so far. I mean, it's just not as snappy or as memorable, as poppy as maybe like Taming of the Shrew or Hamlet, right? So it was good, but not my favorite. Last, I want to talk about Flannery O'Connor's short story that I read today, and that is The Displaced Person. Now, that one, barely a short story, honestly, kind of pushing novella status. It's 40 pages, so I don't know where the division is between those two things, but kind of close to being a novella. Anyways, one more anecdote before I give you a plot summary is that there's a 1976-ish adaptation of this short story, and in it, Samuel L. Jackson plays one of the black farmhands, which is a trip. Just kind of seeing like a very young Samuel L. Jackson. So yeah, that's cool. Anyways, plot summary. So there's this lady that lives on this small southern farm. Her name is Miss McIntyre, and she has had a number of husbands and a number of people help her on the farm in the past. And so currently she has 2 black farmhands, Sulk, who's played by Samuel L. Jackson in the adaptation, and then the other one, I forget his name, it starts with an A. I'm so bad with names. Anyways, it's somewhere in here somewhere, I don't want to look too long for it. Yeah, and then the other people that are living on the farm with her, she has no husband, her husband they divorced. And then there is the Shortleys. So Mr. and Mrs. Shortley with their 2 daughters, they are white and they live on the farm, just helping with some odd jobs here and there, milking the cows, etc. And then the local Catholic priest from the village they live near, or the town, helps Mrs. McIntyre bring in a Polish family. So it's after World War II, they have nowhere to go. Where is it before World War II? I don't remember. Anyways, this Polish family, they are displaced from their hometown, and so they come and help on the farm. Now, they don't speak a lick of English, except for their son speaks some and helps translate, but not all the time. And the main, like the husband of the family, I'm forgetting his name again. I don't know why I do this myself. I don't want to be mean and just call him Polish guy, but Mr. Guizak. He is an ace with all the farm equipment, and he gets all his jobs done like right away, without complaining. He doesn't talk really because he can't speak English, but he's like a superstar. He like gets everything done on time and kind of puts the farmhands and the Shortleys to shame. And so Miss McIntyre is obviously floored about this. She saves money having this guy on the farm, and yeah, everything's good. And the short story, by the way, is divided into 3 parts. So in the first part, now this isn't explicitly stated, but it's kind of inferred that the Polish family, the Guizaks, they're the ones displaced in the first part. Now in the second part, Miss McIntyre, the farm owner, is realizing she doesn't have enough money to pay everybody, so she's like, somebody's got to go, the Guizaks, the Shortleys, or the 2 black farmhands, and she decides that the Shortleys have to go. And so she gets rid of them, or she plans on getting rid of them, is overheard by Miss Shortley. Miss Shortley has an ego and says, we're not getting fired, we're leaving, and packs up that same night, and everyone, and their whole family just leaves. While they're driving, she has a stroke, dies, and then like a month later, Mr. Shortley comes back with his daughters to work on the farm again. So in the second second part, the Shortleys are the ones that are displaced from the farm, right? Then in the third half, obviously I'm leaving out a lot of details. The Miss McIntyre catches Mr. Guizak giving a picture to one of the, I think it's Sulk, one of the farmhands, and it's a picture of Mr. Guizak's cousin, who's 16. And he promises Sulk that if he gives him $3 a week, he will bring her and they can get married. And Mrs. McIntyre does not like this idea. She's starting to feel kind of similar to Miss Shortley, who I know is dead already, but I forgot to say that. She was not a fan of the Polish families at all. She thought they were from the devil and they should not be in America. Yeah, just really did not like the Polish family. And so Miss McIntyre is sort of getting that same vibe now, like, what are they doing here? Like, they're kind of planning things without me. And so she kiboshes that. And then one morning, Mr. Shortley's back on the farm at this point. Sulk is helping Mr. Guizak fix the small tractor. Now, Mr. Shortley is on the big tractor, and he goes and parks it behind the small tractor. Now, it doesn't say if he did this on purpose, okay? But he gets off, and the brake slips on the tractor, and it starts to barrel towards the small tractor, and Mr. Guizak's underneath it, fixing it. Now, at this point, he could have jumped on and stopped it. Now, Mrs. McIntyre looks at Sulk, and Sulk looks at Mr. Shortley, and they all look at each other, and no one does anything. They don't even say anything to Mr. Guizak. They all just kind of jump out of the way and just watch it happen. And the tractor hits the other tractor, and it runs him over and kills him. And after that, everyone's obviously very guilty, and Mr. Shortley and his kids move off the farm. The 2 black farmhands move off the farm, and Mrs. McIntyre is left there all alone. And she kind of has a nervous breakdown, gets old, and kind of is bedridden. And the only person that visits her is the priest. Now, that is a very dark story. I'm leaving out a lot of details. And sorry, I forgot to mention that the third part, the group that's displaced is everybody, because they all are displaced off the farm. And also more so Miss McIntyre, because it says there's a line near the end where she starts to feel like she's a foreigner in her own country when she kind of is watching all of the proceedings happen after Mr. Guizak is killed by the tractor. Now, I kind of am bungling the plot a little bit. I know it's like kind of complex, and I'm leaving stuff out, but this one was very good, and I think that it kind of rivals the turkey for my favorite spot so far of Flannery O'Connor short stories. So, yeah, if you're thinking about reading that one, definitely worth your time. Yeah, I think that's about it for today. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next week.